What's up, YouTube? This is Too Raw for TV. A mere 24 hours after former New Jersey Governor Chris Christie announced his run, that he will be running for the Republican presidential nomination, former United States Vice President Mike Pence, who of course served as Vice President under President Trump, announced that he will also be seeking the Republican presidential nod in 2024. I'll put a link to this article in the pinned comment in the comment section below. He made this announcement in Alkeny, Iowa, and Pence recalled how Trump had asked him to block the certification of Joe Biden's 2020 election win as Pence presided over Congress on January 6, 2021, which of course was the date of the so-called insurrection. Pence told the crowd at Des Moines Area Community College, "The American people deserve to know on that day President Trump also demanded that I choose between him and the Constitution. Now voters will be faced with the same choice. I chose the Constitution, and I always will." He also says that Donald Trump is a man who should never be president again because of his actions in the aftermath of the 2020 election. Pence went on to say, "I believe that anyone who puts themselves over the Constitution should never be president of the United States, and anyone who asks someone else to put them over the Constitution should never be president of the United States again." And he went on to criticize Trump for also his handling of classified documents and a whole legal situation. This is my take on Mike Pence. Do I agree with a lot of stuff that he's saying about Trump? Yes. But where was this before? Where was this indignation when Trump was president? I mean, you had to have seen some of these things, that these horrors that people talk about, right? Everybody's writing books about now, trying to get rich off of how much of a narcissist and how ill-prepared and how Trump was just completely in over his head as president and morally too repugnant to be president, right? But where was this indignation when you were vice president? Why didn't you resign and protest back then? I just remember a guy that was always taking up for Trump. Now then again, it could say that, hey, he's the ultimate loyal, subservient to the president. But that's another problem that Pence has. He was a vice president, and the vice presidency is a very insignificant office. And even though technically, in most situations, the vice president is seen as the logical successor to the president, right? It doesn't really happen often that the vice president immediately succeeds the president as the next president. It doesn't happen often. And that's the problem with the vice presidency, is that it just shrinks you. From a historical standpoint, if I'm not mistaken, there's only been 2 vice presidents to directly succeed their boss to become president. One of them was Martin Van Buren in 1836. The other, George H.W. Bush in 1988, and they both succeeded extraordinarily popular presidents in Andrew Jackson and Ronald Reagan. And essentially, Van Buren's term was seen as a third Jackson term, and Bush's term was seen as a third Reagan term. But both of these presidents were unable to see re-election, to see themselves being re-elected, due to being overwhelmed by a terrible economy and a popular challenger. William Henry Harrison in 1840, and Van Buren had to deal with the fallout of the Depression of 1837-1838, and Jimmy Carter was buried in a 44-state Reagan landslide in 1980, having to deal with the Iranian hostage crisis, a gas shortage crisis, and economy that was in tatters, runaway inflation, stagflation, all those things. Now, of course, there have been vice presidents that have gone to be president eventually, like Joe Biden, Richard Nixon, but those are different cases where they later on became president after some time after serving as vice president. But yes, the vice presidency sort of shrinks you. So, what do we really know about Mike Pence other than the fact that he was Trump's vice president for 4 years? He was a former governor of Indiana, I believe. I think he was a former senator even. And I remember him being in favor of shock treatment for homosexuals or something like that, right? And then another thing is that Mike Pence believes that he is the most conservative member, or most conservative candidate out there right now for president. Well, that might help him during the primary, but that's not going to help you during the general campaign being that conservative. So that's one of the reasons why I think that he's polling in the low single digits, because he's boring to a certain extent, and the vice presidency just shrinks you, you know. But anyway, that's all I got to say about it, man. Tell me what you guys think.